Dear friends, I am here once again with you at this shepherd's voice instance or recording that is taking place. I wish you a very happy Sunday. It's a beautiful Sunday with a good message. You know, we are already in the Lenten season, and the season prompts us to be aware of who we are and what God is doing in our life. The Lenten season is basically becoming aware of God's presence in our life and going back to Him. That beautiful hymn, Lord, I'm coming home. The Gospel of the day gives a beautiful message for us. It's from the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 4, 1 to 13, and it speaks of the temptations of Jesus. Perhaps not just Jesus, it's temptations of the whole world. Someone has said, all the sins, the sinful inclinations, and surely the temptations could be summarized in these three temptations which Jesus experienced in his life before he began his public ministry. The temptations are known to all of us. The first temptation is the devil tempting Jesus to eat bread made out of stones. He says, convert these stones and eat them because you are Son of God. You can do miracles. And what does it mean to Jesus and to all of us? The temptation of bread perhaps is a temptation to depend on material things for our sustenance. Some summarize it to say that it's a temptation of security. You want food, you need clothes, you need to equip yourself, you need a house, and so all these things are so important, so indispensable for you. Perhaps there is no place for God. God is not necessary. Today the computers can do everything. You switch a button and you get everything. You order the food, you go to the supermarket, you get everything. And therefore, do we need God? And Jesus gives answer to the devil to say that man does not live on bread alone. If that was the case, the people who had bread, who had drink, who had clothes, who had cars, who had bungalows, perhaps would have been the happiest people. They are not. So therefore, the solution is not in bread or in your trying to be secure, to be surrounded with security in all forms, but to depend on God. The second temptation is also equally a very interesting one, but see how sharp the devil is. The devil takes Jesus to a high place, perhaps on a mountain, a hillock, and shows him around the whole world and says, such beautiful world we have. And all this will be yours if you bow, if you prostrate before me. We call it the temptation of idols. You know, just like an idol is in front of you and you are requested to bow before it. So also this temptation is asked you to bow before the idols of the world. First of all, we can say idols means false gods. Our God is a real God, a living God. It's not a stone that we adore. It's not a wood that we adore. Perhaps we can justify to say that this woodwork or this crucifix, this statue of Our Lady, reminds us of Our Lady, and we are not foolish enough to say that that is a God, that is Our Lady. But then this temptation goes a little more deeper. Do we have idols in our life? An idol doesn't mean only these stone images or perhaps representations in different metals. We do have idols. There are many for whom the job is an idol. For others, perhaps their family is an idol. I would do everything and anything, but I would not be able to give up my family. Surely we should not give. But then does the family, this particular person in your life stand above God? That's the question. For some, their beauty is an idol. For some, their strength or perhaps their muscles is an idol. There are so many people who are in business and that is their idol. Nothing else is important. Nothing else perhaps is required for me but that idol. I bow before it. I prostrate before it. There are so many people who prostrate before money, before their accounts, before their beauty, before their prestige. These are the idols that Jesus is speaking of today and gives an answer. Jesus himself gives an answer. You shall not bow before any idol except the living God. The third temptation is also a very tricky one. As you know, Jesus is taken to the pinnacle of the temple and Jesus is told by the devil, beautiful everything, and if you could only jump down, you are God. Nothing will happen to you. Nothing can happen to you. On the other hand, see the gains of this particular exercise. The people there down will be surprised that you jumped from on top, nothing happened to you. One of the biggest miracles, and that could spin off into your popularity, that you become one of the most famous persons here. As it is, the devil seems to be telling Jesus, you are a carpenter's son. Who can even notice you? Who can even listen to you? And your job is such a small sort of a humiliating job that no one will see you. You need publicity. You need miracles. You need miracles. Our today's world is looking for miracles, looking for dazzling and perhaps what we call the overwhelming sights and gadgets that make you famous. We call it the temptation of miracles. Because all of us want miracles. There are so many people going from shrine to shrine, pilgrimages, doing penance, asking God for miracles in their life. There is nothing wrong in asking God for miracles. There is nothing wrong in asking God for solution for your life. There is nothing wrong in asking that you be healed of this cancer, of this sickness that you ask one. Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, he himself prayed, take this chalice away, but not my will, your will be done. So therefore, shortcuts, miracles are not the only things that perhaps we need to be looked into. Because sometimes God doesn't answer, looks like God doesn't answer our prayers, doesn't work miracles. That does not mean God is deaf. God is working in our life. And sometimes he shows us the hard way. If you have not done your studies the whole year, you can't ask for a miracle to pass in your exams. If you have not borne the struggle of life, you can't ask for success. There's a saying in the English, there is no gain without pain. Hard life, hard work is also important. And we need to carry the cross of Jesus. Nowadays we don't like to speak of the cross of Jesus, the sufferings of Jesus. We want only the successful stories of Jesus. We only want the resurrection of Jesus. We have to remember that Jesus suffered and died before he rose again, and that's the victory that he got. And therefore, this temptation of miracles, of quick bucks, of fast life, of fast foods, perhaps is sometimes could be dangerous for us, because the cross of life also gives meaning to us. So let us try to understand. I wish you a very happy and holy Sunday, especially with your family members. Let me go to another topic that is causing concern today. The war between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine is a country, small country. We are told there are many Christians there also. And many of our people are in trouble now because of this war between these two countries. And therefore, we have to pray very seriously for this, that God may save us from this war, that Russia and Ukraine may make peace, because it is spiraling into more and more difficult problems for the whole world. Not only lives are lost, the infrastructure of a country is destroyed, and there are so many who will be refugees going out. And among these people who have to be bailed out or sailed out are many of our Indians who had gone there, especially our students, our youth for studies. And we are told that they are struggling to come back. The government is trying to arrange as much as possible for them for their return, but then it's not so easy. We can understand there's already one student who has died from Ranebennur, Davangere district, and there are others who don't seem to be healthy. And therefore we pray for them. In this particular distressing news also we get that Indian sisters in Poland, Indian sisters in Romania, where our students have flown or perhaps crossed the boundaries, crossed the borders, are being welcomed by these sisters of the different congregations, and some of them from India, our own sisters who are looking after our youth in some way. Perhaps may not be a big number, but it's a good gesture. So we pray for these, our students who are caught up in a country, in a war-stricken country. Thirdly, I'm speaking to you on this media, you know that week after week, I'm in this what's called the studio, the Ave studio that is in Palana Bhavan. That's one of the sort of infrastructures of our Archdiocesan Communication Center. We have equipped a studio, and surely many people have helped us. And the other day, just 2 days back, we had a Thanksgiving program for all our benefactors who helped us in this, putting up this studio of recording video as well as audio. And I am told Father Cyril Victor, who is in charge, there are still smaller things to be bought, the cameras, the equipments, and certain other things in order to make the studio complete. And surely I open my mouth to say that if there are some good persons of goodwill who would like to help us, we are welcome. On the other hand, this studio is something offered to the Archdiocese. And so our Christians from the parishes, if you want to make a small video or perhaps an audio, a cassette of songs, or perhaps some program that has to be recorded of your church, of your parish, of your congregation, the religious, we would be very happy to do it. It's a service that the Archdiocese can give to you, and surely we will consider it our privilege to be at your service for this particular ministry. I go now to what's called the Women's Day. It's a beautiful day, International Women's Day. Frailty, thy name is woman, said Shakespeare long ago. Frailty. Perhaps things have not changed much. The women are still frail, poor, perhaps in the back seat and not given a chance. Sometimes suffering is also part of their life. So therefore, when we celebrate this day, first of all, we bless and thank God for all the women in our life, our own mothers, our own wives, our sisters, and all those people who make us smile because a woman is always special. You know, there's not much difference between women and men. Perhaps we have the same roles to play, we have the different roles to play, but then our equality before God is same. Has anyone said that man is superior to a woman, that woman is inferior to men? We have to get rid of these what's called archaic ideas and start treating women as equals. As equals. So therefore, perhaps in your own home, in your own society, in your own group, you can recognize and respect and ask forgiveness wherever we have perhaps offended the women in our lives. There are women who suffer in the families, in the society, I must say perhaps even in the church. And that is why we have to be aware of these weaknesses on the part of women on the part of men to treat women unequally among us. Fortunately, our Archdiocese also in the last 5-6 months, the women have woken up not just as individually but as a group. Individually they are doing very well. Many of the women are entrepreneurs today. They are in the corporate world. We have soldiers, we have officers, we have professors, perhaps we have scientists, we have doctors, engineers. They are doing individually very well. And thanks be to the encouragement that they received from their families, more and more could join. But then in our Archdiocese, we have this, what we call the Archdiocesan Women's Collective. Group of women coming together in parishes, in different parishes. Perhaps it should be in all the parishes. As of now, I am told about 35 parishes have formed this, what's called the Archdiocesan Women's Collective. We have a president, Mrs. Priya Francis, and there are other office bearers who are leading them. And already in the course of 6 months, I must say that they have arranged so many programs for the young girls, for empowering the girls, empowering the women. We for She program. And besides that, they have also organized gender equality programs. And one of their objectives on 8th of March, that's the International Day of Women, or perhaps the Sunday after it, or Sunday before it, in order to organize the women in the parishes, they request the support of our parish priests to have a nice liturgy, for which we have sent the inputs along with my circular, and also on that particular day some activity that represents the unity and our generosity towards women. Don't underrate the women. They are powerful. They are strong horse. Eleanor Roosevelt says, a woman is like a tea bag. You can't tell how strong she is until you put her in hot water. At the times of challenges, they come out best, and we shall give women equal chances, more chances in order to bloom their characters, their potentials, and very especially what they can do for us in our church and society. I now go to the questions that perhaps you have asked us, you have asked me. There are 3 questions that I've been asked. Number 1 is, when Mass attendance is required, what if you are traveling? Is it a sin that when you are traveling, surely you can't attend Mass? The church is not so harsh. We understand perhaps when you are traveling, when you are sick, when you are indisposed, you cannot keep up the Sunday obligation. But you can make up for this Sunday obligation in some other way. You are not purposely missing it. It is inevitable that you are on a particular work or mission or travel because of which you miss. So therefore, you make up in some way this particular absence for Mass. Perhaps you can have the readings of the Bible of that day, spend some time in prayer, do a good work in order to make up for this non-attendance of yours at the Mass, which for others in normal circumstances is obligatory. Secondly, the second question that has been asked to me is it important for a priest to wear clerical attire at all times? You know, I'm wearing this cassock, white cassock. We see our priests, and there are some perhaps who are seen without the cassock. So what is it? I would say the habit does not make a monk. The habit is important. But the habit is not, I would say, important or most important if we are given the impression, we give the impression that we do this work, but the habit is an outward sign of our inward disposition of ours. What I am trying to say is, when a priest is perhaps all by himself, when a priest is known to everybody, I know that this is a priest, and whether he puts his cassock or not. So in such circumstances, when cassock or perhaps the dress, the attire is not needed, it may not be. But for official functions, when he is celebrating the Mass, perhaps when he is celebrating a particular function or program, when he is representing the community, when perhaps something is required of him for which his leadership is being asked for, in these moments, it surely behooves the priest to wear the attire as also the other religious. But I said, it is not that for all times that we have to wear the cassock. We have come a long way to say that perhaps cassock is important, but some sign and symbol that you are a priest, that you are a religious, perhaps could also make up in certain circumstances where you are known, where it may not be so important for you. You know, nowadays in the times of anti-Christian or anti-conversion type of this one, for some people perhaps it is also an irritation to see a religious symbol, a religious attire that to be done. If work can be done in a better way without it, in a common, secular or perhaps neutral platform, perhaps we can still go ahead. The last question that is being asked here is it, how does one properly dispose of old and torn vestments or priestly, perhaps attire, anything that is connected with the liturgy, with the church, etc. For example, a vestment is torn. A vestment is perhaps very, very old, unless it has got an antique value for which we have to preserve it in certain places. The other things of the church, the things of the altar, the cloth of the altar, etc., since they are being used for holy circumstances, we just don't throw them in the basket or perhaps in the waste paper, etc., but we burn them so that they are not desecrated, or rather they are not used for purposes, they are not considered as waste or things that have no value, etc. That is why we burn them. So the old vestments, the old cloth, the purificators, perhaps the altar cloth, and these materials that are used in the church, used on the altar, are not to be discarded but could be burnt or put off in a particular place respectfully, so that they are not used for purposes which are not liturgical or not even considered as holy. So that is why we try to keep up this particular type of way of disposing in order to satisfy ourselves that we have given the proper regard to these things. Finally, Father Victor, Cyril Victor asked me, Bishop, this is Lenten season, perhaps some message every Sunday that I could give on the Lenten themes, as it were. For example, what we call the virtues and sins. Lenten season is meant for us to perhaps to build up our virtues in some way. At the same time, discard our sins and sinful tendencies. And so perhaps I also took a clue from that to say that could I start with what's called the capital sins. Capital sins. There are 7 capital sins, and as opposite also we have the 7 virtues, which I'll take some other time. But I won't take all the virtues and sins today. I will take just one capital sin, that's called pride. Pride. You know what is pride. You know what is to be proud. First of all, these capital sins are called capital because not only you write them in capital letters, as it were, they are the ones perhaps that they are driving your life to destruction. And that's why they are called capital. They are called deadly sins. You know, death, deadly. They lead you to death. And these sins are so degrading that they pull out the humanity and the divinity of you. These sins perhaps are not mentioned, enumerated one after the other in what we call in our Bible, in our scriptures. But through the tradition of the church, we are told Saint Gregory was the first one who sort of mentioned about them, and Saint Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century, he's the one who developed a little of theology or understanding of these sins. First of all, pride is the first one. Envy, gluttony, lust, greed, anger, and sloth or laziness. These are the 7 sins. I speak a little today about pride. Pride, you know, there's a popular saying, pride will make you fall in the center of the hall. Meaning to say that you can't be proud all the time. There will be a time perhaps this same pride or this capital sin will bring you to the floor, as it were. First of all, there are certain things, perhaps in English, the word pride means something good also, and surely something bad. I am proud of my country. I am proud of my mother, my family. I am proud of my school where I studied. You know, these are things which you are, that's one. So the meaning is in these things that these things which mean to you, surely you are to be proud. We use the same word of pride for good and for bad. But what we speak as the capital sin, pride that will destroy us. You know, we have that beautiful parable in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 18, the Pharisee and the publican. The Pharisee was really a learned man who has done so much for the religion and for generosity among the poor, etc. He comes and boasts in front of the altar, in the temple, in the synagogue, to say that I have done this, I have done that. He is really proud. And as opposite to him is the publican. The publican is the one who were looting the people to the taxes, and so he doesn't even consider himself worthy to move into the synagogue. He stands outside and said, Lord, have mercy on me, for I am a sinner. And we can clearly make out who is the proud man, who is the humble man. Pride surely brings us down. Pride brought down, first of all, the angels to the status of devils. The main archangel became the Lucifer. Pride brought down Adam and Eve from their status of being chosen ones. Pride brought out in the whole history we have seen, there are so many instances that pride was something not only destroyed us, but it cut off our relationship with God. So ultimately, what is pride? Pride is an exclusive belief in one's own abilities. I can do everything. There's nothing that I can I say that I boast of my great qualities, of my strength, of my this one. And so pride is an excessive belief in one's abilities that interferes in the individual's recognition of God. That God is important, the proud man doesn't take it. That others are important, he doesn't care for it. He would like to say everything sort of centers on him. We call it the I sickness. I means not the I, but the capital I. Ego. In our Sanskrit, we call it aham. Aham, everything for myself. Everything is on my own. St. Augustine would say, it was pride that chained the angels into devils. And that is what happens to us also. Many of us, when we become pride, we become devilish. You know, in some cases it's been said that pride is the root cause of also, or rather accompanied also by the other sins. And that way it's the most harmful sin. And pride is also that which destroys us. So perhaps in this week I speak of this sin that is destroying us, capital sin, pride. The next time I shall take envy. And as you know, as against pride, we have humility, which is a beautiful quality. Perhaps I will get time to speak in my future references on the screen here. I wish you a good Sunday. God bless you. Pray for me and pray for the Archdiocese. Thank you.
My dear friends, please do share your feedback, your impressions, and your experience, or send a message to the email address as you find on the screen, archdblr@gmail.com. And you also have the phone number, the mobile number, wherein you can send your message or WhatsApp on this number. Archbishop is ready and waiting to answer your questions. If you have any question, any doubt, any uncertainty, or there's no clarity upon something, you can ask those questions, and with the discretion that the Archbishop will surely answer these questions in the weekly feature Shepherd's Voice. Thank you, and we look forward to the next episodes.